Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcasts, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting guru Mark Zweig and his team of experts straight talk in your ear. Mark has more than 30 years of experience helping AEP and environmental firms thrive, and these podcasts deliver his invaluable management, industry, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts let you develop professionally, wherever you are.
Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Today I'm here with Sanjay Jenkins once again. We just recently did a Life Hacker series, and we are working on a couple of new initiatives for this podcast. And so we thought we'd come to you today as we are on the eve of the Hot Firm event, which is taking place next weekend. If you're listening to this before the 19th of September, it's taking place in Seattle, Washington at the Fairmont Hotel there, right near the public market in fabulous downtown Seattle. And so we're really looking forward to that event. We're going to be surrounded around with about 100 of the most successful design firms in the industry. And it should be an amazing event. There are going to be several hundred people there during the end of next week, and Seattle's going to be a pretty happening place as far as the design industry is concerned. And we even are finished. The culmination of the whole event is a Coldplay concert at whatever the field is, that CenturyLink Field, I think is maybe the name of the field where the Seattle Seahawks play. So yeah, so it's that's the field that Paul Allen owns, I guess is how I describe it. So should be pretty fun. Should be a great time. If you're a seafood lover, I can't think of a better place to be. If you're a coffee lover, I can't think of a better place to be. If you like fine department stores, aka Nordstrom's, I can't think of a better place to be. So Seattle will be the epicenter of the design industry next week, and it should be awesome. You can find out more about Hot Firm at zweiggroup.com /Hot Firm, and you can get additional information about the event and what's happening. And if for some reason you're hearing this before that, you're like, Randy, you have FOMO, fear of missing out, and you want to be there, just reach out to me. Hit me up on Twitter or hit me up on the DM, and we can make it happen even at the last minute. I'm sure Sanjay and I can work something out and get you in the door. So, but anyway, today we're going to do something a little different. And we're going to be constantly tweaking this podcast to fine tune it and make sure that we're giving you exactly what we know that the audience wants to hear. And since primarily the audience for the Zweig Letter is really primarily business owners of design firms, we really want to make sure that we're giving you things that are helpful, not just for running your business, but for just your regular life. And that's why we've been doing the Life Hacker series. And so we're talking about a number of different initiatives. One of them is, how do you hire and keep great talent with the new media that's out there, all the different ways to do that. And so that's what we're going to spend some time actually today and next week going over different ways from a new media perspective to hire and keep great talent. And a lot of times when you think of new media, people wonder, well, what does that actually mean? Are we talking about, some variation of the TV or radio? And it's kind of like that. I mean, what you're listening to right now is a podcast. This is new media. There are a number of different new media initiatives out there and different ways that people are reaching the general audience or general public. And so we want to make sure that firms in the design space are certainly taking advantage of all the new technology that is out there and available to them. I mean, I'm not saying that direct mail and everything else. I mean, you still get those circulars at home. You still get those Valpak coupon packages in your mail and all that. So yeah, that stuff does work, but it's not working nearly as well as the surgical, precise ads that you can take out on Facebook and on others. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about podcasting. We're going to talk about the gamification of hiring people. We're going to talk all about the different ways that you can become really creative at getting your firm out there. And I call it the be everywhere mentality, And so I don't know, Sanjay, if you want to lend something to that idea, but I know I first heard about I think I first heard about the be everywhere mentality from Pat Flynn.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's just, nowadays you can't afford not to, and the barrier to entry is very low.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that you are on every platform that is relevant to, first of all, understand that the social media, these are tools.
Right.
They're distribution channels. And each one has its own strength. So understanding that is really critical. And you want to, this be everywhere mentality, which really just means that you're doing everything you can to distribute your content, your brand identity, to the widest audience possible. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, every time you post something, on all of the different channels, on all the different social medias, or platforms, I should say, they're going to get thousands of likes and views. You just need that one view.
Right.
But you don't know necessarily exactly where that one view is going to come from.
Yeah.
So it's important that you're everywhere, that you are present, that you are in front of people where their attention is, so you can capitalize on those opportunities or create them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and nowadays, I think it's just important for firms to have a plan for how they're going to reach people. And, you really never know where you're going to get work. I mean, we do this podcast on a regular basis, and have we gotten work from this podcast? I pretty well could venture to say yes, absolutely. We've actually had people call and say, "Hey, I heard about the firm through the podcast, and I want to know more. Tell me more about Zweig Group." So it's just this idea that some things are not like, there's not a one-to-one,
right?
Result,
right? In
terms of, if I do this podcast, then somebody's going to call me and hire me to do work.
Right. Some
of that happens. Sometimes maybe you say you're working on public projects, and somebody that is a public official hears about your firm, and you're in the bidding process for a public project. And not to say that you're going to get the job because you had a podcast, but if anything, maybe somebody that's on a committee that's going to vote for a particular project has heard about your firm and has heard you talk, you specifically, you firm owner, or somebody in the marketing or sales department or business development has talked about,
and technical people
have talked about and extolled the virtues of your organization, and people get to know who you are above and beyond a simple brochure, which, let's face it, I mean, brochures are it's so last century, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, come on, who's got a brochure? I barely carry business cards anymore.
Right.
It's like, you want to find me, you can find me instantly.
I'll give you my Instagram handle.
Exactly. I'll give you, and that's what I always say to everybody. I'm at Randy Wilburn on everything. So just look for me. You can find me. You can message me. There isn't an issue with you reaching out to me. And I think that, firms need to respect that, right? Because I think that the age-old way of reaching out and connecting with people, you still have to glad hand. You still have to get out to networking events and meet with people and talk to as many people as you can. But just that be everywhere mentality really kind of sets you up for success long-term, especially in the way that the market is now.
And that's the one word, long term, or I guess it's a hyphenated whatever.
Right. Yeah. No,
but that's the real mindset. That's the focus. This is not a short term gain.
No.
This is you're building brand equity, and that takes time.
Yeah.
The return on that is going to come. You never know when it's going to come,
right?
But you have to have the patience to wait it out, and to keep doing the little things, the things that work, the things that build your brand. But you just got to make sure that this is a long-term play.
Yeah.
And we've said this on the podcast before. Some of our podcast listeners have interacted with me directly,
yep. And
we've had those conversations, and it's always the people who are doing marketing well understand that it's a long-term play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, like I said, it's, that proverbial tortoise and the hare, right? And I always want to be the tortoise because, it's just, steady plodding ultimately.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound sexy. I get it.
Right.
But it ultimately pays off in the long run. So really want to encourage you that the information that we're going to share today is not something that is just plug and play and you just forget it and walk away.
Right.
But it's about being intentional. It's about having a game plan in place.
Right.
So want to really kind of walk you through some of the things that you can do to be able to kind of set your firm apart. And I think, Sanjay, you've been in this industry for a little while now, and you actually are doing social media intakes and reviews for firms.
Correct.
Just to kind of do like an assessment of, where does their social media stand? Oh, wow, this firm here hasn't posted on Twitter since 2009. And this person has one like on their Facebook fan page. And you're like, man, okay, these guys have a lot of work to do. You see that all the time,
I
right?
do.
Yeah. So the idea is that there's not one specific solution. It's just a simple fact of really getting out there and kind of getting a hold of the situation, especially from a social media standpoint, especially from a new media standpoint and how you take advantage of it. And so today, what we want to do is kind of talk about, and this is actually going to be, we're going to package this up into two particular podcasts. So this week and next week, we're going to kind of dive deep in these areas and we're going to break it up. I'm not exactly sure how it'll be broken up, but over the next 2 weeks, you'll be able to kind of take this all in and figure out how you can hire and keep great talent with new media. But the bottom line is that, this whole, there are 5 new media options that I've come up with. One is blogging. One is social media. One is, the next one is virtual and augmented reality. Another one is audio and video. And finally, the last one is digital gaming and gamification, which actually there are some distinctions there. When you think of digital gaming, as far as like Madden or World of Warcraft and all that other stuff and things that probably a lot of your kids play. And then there's the gamification of most items that allow people to keep people coming back for more. It's kind of like the way that Facebook has gamified their applications so that when you go and post something, one of the first things that you do is you look to go back to see who's liked it.
Right.
And, it's that subtle Jedi mind trick. It's like, wow, I just said something cool. I wonder if anybody else thinks
it's that gratification.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got one like. Wait, I got another like. And then you come back later and there's like 37 likes and 5 comments. And you're like, and it's almost like, it's almost like an endorphin release.
It is.
If you will.
It actually is.
It is. Yeah. It is an endorphin release. And so, we're gonna kind of dive deep into that and talk about this whole be everywhere mindset and what it takes through the lens of these 5 areas: blogging, social media, augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, and there are some distinctions there, and then audio and video, and then also we're going to talk about digital gaming and gamification. So hopefully you'll get something out of this. Sanjay, do you have anything to add specifically?
No,
to that?
I think let's dive deep.
Let's get it started. So one of the first areas that I always encourage people to get involved with, especially at a firm, and in terms of people wonder, well, Randy, how do I get our blog? I mean, how do I get our website, get more traffic to our website? And most design firms that we run across have a fairly static website.
Yeah.
They have a lot of information about us, contact us, what we do, our mission, projects that we're working on, our people.
Right.
It's a standard. You see it over and over and over again. Now, very few firms have content, like real content. And when I say content, I don't mean a list of all your offices and the people that work for you. I'm talking about like, hey, are you writing articles about things that you're doing?
Right.
Why is this industry special for you? And it doesn't matter what discipline, I don't care what you do, whether you do clean rooms, you're a mechanical engineer, whether you are LEED certified in your building. I mean, I've heard some of the greatest stories told by firms, and I'm amazed, when they walk me through some of the projects they're doing and how they're doing it. Like we had a client that was working on doing a LEED, was like the first LEED Gold certified like elementary school with a 0 footprint, meaning that it doesn't expend any energy, and it doesn't cost the school system anything to run the school.
Like renewable.
Yeah, it's totally renewable. They're doing a lot of really interesting things, and these guys, they didn't even highlight that.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, do you know how interesting and compelling this is?
Yeah.
To have a 0 carbon footprint building that, doesn't give off a lot of off gassing and have a lot of other problems, and, is self-sustainable and I mean, basically generates its own energy and everything. And it's like, you've got to share that information.
Yeah.
But, for some of our clients and a lot of firms in the design space, that information is like the best kept secret.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be like that. And so blogging to me is one of the oldest forms of new media. It's been around since the 90s. And, a lot of people may think that blogging is a little long in the tooth. And when I say blogging, I mean, just writing articles about things that are of interest to you. Most of you read blog articles and don't realize they're blog articles. Yeah. Most blog articles are linked to from Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.
Correct.
And then of course you've got you have Medium, which is really big now.
Yeah.
And I read pretty much all of my articles through Medium. I have a Medium account, and I put out articles on Medium. We repurpose our blog articles here at Zweig Group on Medium as well, just to get additional eyes on there and additional traffic. But I mean, that's huge.
It is. People, for the longest time I thought, well, no one wants to read. No one wants to do long form reading.
Right.
And certainly no one wants to do long form writing.
Right.
But just in my own behavior, I've found myself reading, very long articles, on topics that I'm interested in. If you're interested in it, then it's not that big of a deal.
No.
And again, you would be surprised how many people actually do consume written words still, in a world that's increasingly audio and increasingly video.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a little thing. If you don't like writing, if you don't like sitting down at a computer or taking some pen and paper out and actually just making words happen on a page, dictate.
Right.
And you don't, necessarily have to just talk about your own projects. Maybe you have some proprietary stuff you don't want to, you don't want getting out. That's fine.
Yeah.
There are industry standards that you have to keep up with, new techniques.
Exactly.
There's so much opportunity to create content around interesting things that you'd be foolish not to do that.
Yeah.
And I know it comes back to the metrics thing, like how many people are going to see it, how many people are going to read it, what is going to be the result of this? Well, especially in this industry, and this is something that I wrote about recently in a Zweig Letter article. There's this the large follower fallacy. Like you need to have X number of people see this before this becomes a valuable piece of content. And that's not true.
Right.
Just get this out there. Just make something, put it, and be regular about it. Don't put out a blog content and then, have on the top of your blog, like, it's the most up-to-date, piece or source of information for this niche in the industry, and then have, your posts spread out by like 4 months, or I saw something crazy where it's like the website, the blog said that it was the most up-to-date resource for a particular niche, and it hadn't been updated in about 16 months.
Yeah.
That's, you have a timestamp on it. Like I can see that that's not true. So be consistent about it. And the added benefit here is that creating articles written, with words on the internet, that indexes on search engines. This increases your search engine optimization more so than, all the metadata, all the tags that you have in the back end of your website and your posts. Just having content that people consume, that's actually what I know Google primarily,
right,
that's what they care about the most.
And it's organic.
Correct.
Organic. We're talking about organic, not manufactured traffic,
right,
organic traffic.
Right.
I always feel like going through that whole Allen Iverson. We're talking about practicing that, but we're talking about organic traffic.
Yeah.
And what that simply means is you just being you,
right,
sharing information about what your organization is doing, how they're doing it, and who it's impacting, how it's changing your philosophy or approach to design. Right. All of that information needs to be shared, and that organic traffic will kick into high gear as you start to gain momentum, and as more people recognize it. And it just for whatever reason, it just continues to give you way more love from Google than anything else.
Yeah.
And we have clients that have kind of mastered this, and clients that actually haven't been around for that long.
Yeah.
That when you go into I go into one state, Texas, and we have a client, and they're not a big firm. They're a really solidly built firm. They're really aggressive. They're doing some really unique things. Haven't been around for a long time. They're not a legacy firm. I think they've been around for maybe less than 10 years.
Right.
They own the first page on Google.
They really do.
Just about every vertical in the design space.
Yeah.
And they know, they just push out fresh content all the time.
Yeah.
They have a marketing person. They've got some content people that are writing good stuff. All of the leadership is engaged in writing when and where possible. And yes, I understand people have to be billable, and you want to keep those numbers up, your utilization up, but there's got to be somebody there.
Yeah.
And more firms are hiring social media strategists and people that will come in and kind of help them bridge that gap and really take advantage of it. But this particular firm, I can go into just about any specialty that they offer. They're at the top of the page.
Yeah.
You can't buy that kind of advertising.
No.
If I'm a potential client and I'm looking for someone to do some subdivision work, or to do, I need somebody to build a 2 to 4 story wood frame structure, for a commercial application. That kind of information, if that's what you do, people need to find you right away, especially if they're looking in your area and they're looking for something specific. There shouldn't be you shouldn't be the best kept secret, which most design firms are.
Yeah.
And in most design firms, a lot of you people that are listening, we know you do great stuff. And you just have to get out of your own way and recognize that there is value to creating this information and content and getting it out there for the world to see.
And I think that's a pretty interesting mindset shift that needs to happen here. I was actually talking to one of our podcast listeners over LinkedIn probably about a month or so ago, and he was telling me how he was the sort of the stereotypical introverted engineer. And, he's been listening to our podcast. I'm not saying we're the reason why he's decided to change. But, he wants to get into the personal branding and just sort of being more active on digitally. But something that he said that really stood out to me was that it was like, sometimes you got to like start bragging, and he had bragging in like quotation marks.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily bragging, right? In a little way, yes, you are tooting your own horn. However, you should be proud of the work you do. Like when you go home and, you tell your family, like, hey, I got to work on this really cool thing. That's okay.
Yeah.
What you're doing when you make these types of content, when you're showcasing the work that you've done, all you're saying is, we take great pride in the work that we do. We know that we do good work.
Right.
And people want to see that. People want to be able to go to somebody and say, when they have a question, and say, okay, so I have this need. How do I solve it? Maybe you can't solve it, but maybe you've written something, else that's helped them out. When they do have a need that you can solve, they're going to come to you.
Right.
And you just have to build that ecosystem, that environment where you're just filtering everything to you. And, the client that you mentioned, I think they're legendary. That's like
in a short
word.
Period of time, they are legendary. That's for sure.
And that's it's
everybody's going to be listening to this, wondering who is that client and what do they do? What makes them so special?
It's dedication. It's really it's a commitment to the be everywhere mindset.
Yeah,
it's a very thorough understanding of what marketing is and execution.
Yeah,
they've executed brilliantly. They continue to execute brilliantly. They're crushing it on social media,
and we can. I mean, I don't want to tease something and then not mention it. The client, and the reason why I'm going to mention the client's name is because we've actually had the founder of the company on this podcast a couple of times, actually 3 times. He's been on. He's been on almost as many times as Mr. Sanjay Jenkins has been on. So, but no, that individual I'm speaking of is Will Schneer, and he is the founder of Big Red Dog. Big Red Dog. I mean, yes, it's a very interesting, whimsical name. You think of Clifford, and that's kind of their mascot. And honestly, that gets a heck of a lot of traction for them and on the social media platform. And then if you go into Texas and Google anything in any of the verticals within the industry that they serve, from a civil, structural application, planning, they're going to be at the top of the list.
Right.
And I mean, we're talking anybody listening to this that knows anything about engineering and architecture knows that some of the biggest firms in the world are either have offices in Texas or based in Texas. There's a lot going on in Texas, the Great Republic. And so, Big Red Dog has come in and in no uncertain terms has kind of laid down the law and basically said, hey, this is where we are. And this is what we're doing. And, it's kind of, they are the prime example of what that be everywhere mentality is like. And I think it's great. Plus, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a minute, but, plus it also allows them to export their brand from a talent acquisition standpoint.
Right.
So people can see, man, these guys are fun to work with. Man, they have a chili contest. Man, they drink Topo Chico in the office. Man, and it just goes on and on and on. These guys know how to have fun. Where are you going to work? Are you going to work at the firm that posts nothing about anything that they do? Oh, yeah, we're a great place to work, but you don't know. You have no guarantee of what that's really like. Or a firm that's on Instagram, on Facebook, constantly posting about all the amazing stuff that they're doing. That's just the way that it is, So really want to, encourage the listeners to really be thinking about that be everywhere mentality. And if you need help with that, certainly reach out to Sanjay or myself, and we can give you some ideas. And actually, I'm actually going to be speaking about this at an event next week, which is going to be at the Hot Firm event, and I'm going to be talking about hiring and keeping great talent with new media. And I'll see if I can get a copy of the audio for that and share that information with you and let you know. I'll
be recording.
Yeah, I know you'll
probably have a video of that too.
I'm sure we'll have something, but I want to share that information so that more of you guys can get this, because I know some of you are saying, "Well, Randy, you don't understand. We're so busy," and we're all busy. You just have to make some time for it. We've seen some clients that have just hired full-time social media people, and it has taken off for them. And these are some really smart people. But if you can't afford to do that, you can start off small with an intern from a local college and build from there. We can give you some ideas about how to do that. So we could talk some more about that. And, and so, and then just check out Big Red Dog's Twitter page. And they're engaging. They're always putting something out there. And They follow me on Instagram and some other things, and I follow them, and they've got a lot of interesting things. I mean, they're probably one of the most followed engineering firms in the country in terms of just the exposure that they have. But just check them out and see what's going on. And I bet you in the next 5 years, when we look back, part of their success will be due to their social media strategy.
Like if I was looking for a job, I'm the kind of person who will, if I'm having a meeting with somebody, one part of my prep is what can I find on the internet?
Exactly.
What kind of what are they posting on social media? What are they interested in? If you look at a firm, when you're trying to find a job, you want to understand a firm's culture before you get there.
Yeah.
And
it's more than just reading words.
It's more than just reading words.
You want to watch some video if you can.
Yeah.
You want to look at pictures. There's a lot that you want to take a look at.
I mean, just looking at, Big Red Dog's Instagram just now, I actually just pulled it up. They're doing things to celebrate their employees. This work hard. There was this really cool work hard, play hard post that they made. Highlighting their interns. Fundamentally, it shows that they care about the people that work there, because at any firm, it's really made not by the stuff that you have or the project that you've done, but the people who are in it. And I know just from my interactions, and I've only been in this industry for a little while. I've only had
you are a newbie, but you're coming along pretty quickly.
Yeah,
so.
I'm hustling. I'm trying to keep up. But
every day
absolutely. There are so many great firms and so many wonderful workplaces. Like when I was at TPA, the Principals Academy in Chicago, I had a chance to interact with a lot of people and just hearing about the little things that they do at the office for fun. Most firms are actually really cool.
Right.
You just have to talk about it.
Right.
And talking about it, man, your buddy posts something about their really cool work, or one of your coworkers posts something about your workplace, and their friend who's also an engineer sees it. It's like, oh man, yeah, that's somewhere I want to work. And that's talent acquisition right there. It's that's organic.
Yeah.
That's rather than you expending a lot of energy going out into the market and trying to bring. You've created this, the sales funnel where they come to you.
Right. You've
become the magnet, and that's what you really want.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, that's the way that you have to do it. You have to get out there and be really intentional. And I know I use that word so much, and I if I owned it, and I could charge myself for every time I use that word, but we have to be intentional about this stuff. It's not something that you can just look casually by and say, oh, well, I'll get to it when I can.
Right.
But,
you wouldn't do that with a project.
No, absolutely not. So, it would not work. So, but yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is.
So just to sort of quickly recap on blogging, what's from a talent acquisition standpoint, what would be some really effective actionable items that a firm leader could take themselves or have someone at their firm implement, or not just firm leaders? I mean, everybody can be a firm leader. You don't have to be your position in the org chart does not represent your ability to be a firm leader, but actionable steps. In terms of blogging specifically, and then as we transition into social media a little bit.
Well, I think the first thing that firms want to do is they certainly want to blog about the way that they work with and develop talent, right? So you want to talk about any internal professional or personal development programs that you do.
Okay.
You want to talk about how because that's one of the biggest issues that we hear from firms. And we hear from, when I talk to candidates as a recruiter, because I still actively recruit to stay sharp. As a recruiter, it's one of the first things that I hear is that there was just no professional or personal development at fill in the blank firm. And that's an issue for people. People want to constantly grow. And yes, you could just say, oh, well, they should be resourceful, and there's all kinds of information out there. There's the LinkedIn Learning. There's all this stuff. People can just go do that. That's great. But wouldn't it be nicer if, as an organization, you take a time and take some type of plan and put it together, and then put it in front of your people, and then let them consume it? We have another client that's based on the East Coast, and right outside of Philly, and they have their own university. So they've got their company name University, and they get together a couple times a month and train their people over brown bag lunches, and they do some amazing things. That kind of stuff goes a long way.
Right.
Because people remember that. And it's hard to pull somebody out of a situation like that where they're constantly being fed, they're constantly being trained, and they have the opportunity to work on some really great projects.
So that's a great retention tool.
Yeah, it's a huge retention tool. So, but that's the first thing. I mean, just in general of getting your information out there and talking about, what it's like to work at your firm. What I would do is have every intern that comes and works at your company in the summer to write do a day in the life.
Mm-hmm.
I would also have your leadership do a day in the life, and kind of like for some people in this audience that may know about Reddit or Ask Me Anything, you can kind of do that. I've always said that, firm leaders should do an AMA or Ask Me Anything where, people, different ones in the company can ask them questions that they always wondered. I would transcribe all of that and put it out as a blog post.
Yeah. Easy.
It's huge, really easy.
Mm-hmm.
But again, people get to see that's what Bob is like. That's what Sue is like. That's what Jose is like. That's what Ricky's like. They just get to learn a little bit more about the individuals there. And for somebody coming in on the outside looking in, they understand the pulse of an organization, and they don't have to leave it to get to chance.
Right.
And I know people are listening to this right now like, Randy, you just don't understand. I don't have time to do this.
Yeah.
I get it. But you got to make time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make time. If you don't, you've already lost. You might as well just, turn the podcast off now and just hang it up.
Yeah.
Because the marketplace is changing. And most of the people here that are listening know what we're talking about, but you want your information right away. I get home at night, I want to turn on ESPN and be able to get all the information I want to get, and then consume it when I want to consume it, and move on and go from there. It's the same thing. You just have to be really, you have to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work on that. So, man, we've spent quite a bit of time just talking about blogging. We haven't even gotten to social media. So, Sanjay, you know what? I realize that we're moving forward here, and we're doing quite a bit. So why don't we? We're going to break this up, and we're going to leave this podcast just on blogging. I think that's great.
Yeah,
we talked a lot about it. So why don't we do that? And we want to keep people on edge for what's going to happen on the social media piece. We'll share that next week while we're at Hot Firm, and hopefully we'll talk to people and let them know what's going on, and we'll just kind of go from there. But in the meantime, let's just close it out, and then that way we can get people ready and fired up for next week's episode.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Folks, I want to encourage you to get a free subscription of Civil Plus Structural Engineer magazine. And to sweeten the pot, we are throwing in a couple of issues of the Zweig letter too. Just visit freetzl.zweiggroup.com and leave us your email address. We will take care of the rest. Everything will be delivered to you electronically. In addition, if your firm is looking to hire great talent, please join our mailing list for AEC Workforce. Just text the word "hire faster" to 66866, and that will get you on the list where you will learn more about this upcoming job board for the design and construction industry. As a reminder, all Zweig Group media programs like this one are available in both podcast and video format, free for download on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube, just to name a few places. A link to all this information, including contact information for our guests, will be in our show notes. And we'd love it if you'd go to iTunes or wherever you tune into this show and give us a rating and share this link with a friend. Remember, sharing is caring. I'm Randy Wilburn.
I'm Sanjay Jenkins.
And you've been listening to Zweig Group Media, part of Zweig Group. Remember, we exist to make you more successful. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this Zweig Letter podcast. We hope that you can apply Mark's no-holds-barred advice to your daily professional life. For a free transcript of this or any episode of our podcast, please visit info.zweiggroup.com/podcast. If you want more wisdom and inspiration, In addition to information about finance, HR, and marketing your firm, subscribe to the print or digital version of the Zweig Letter online at zweiggroup.com/publications.